We've come here to give you the first look at the test drive of the new Peugeot 208. We have this designed for all three drivetrains, hopefully optimized for each of them. In keeping with that, the styling has massively changed. So the first thing are these striking lights. Look at the way they carve straight into the bumper. It makes a very specific statement, and it's in keeping with the rest of the line. 4 meters and 2 or 158 inches in length. This car is now 5 centimeters. That's approximately this much longer than the predecessor, but significantly 4 centimeters shorter in height. And you can see quite what a difference that has made. Now, as you look at the car in profile here, the car is available with 15 to 17 inch, depending on the model that you go for. I really like the styling of the larger wheel for this car. It's not absurdly large, it's just nice, and I can tell you it rides well too. Now, different for this trim line versus others is that here we have body matching color on the wheel arches, and that does make the car look a little bit more as you would expect it to. If you go for different trim lines, you can have a stark black contrast here, and that makes those wheels appear even larger and more aggressive. Now we come to the rear of the car, and my goodness, what a difference a redesign can make. This feels so much more sporty and agile than the predecessor. Let's take a closer look and find out. Well, okay, we may have a little bit of camera equipment happening back here, but I can tell you what you're looking at is now 265 litres of load space. And if you're wondering, that is 20 litres less than the predecessor. But before you say, come on, a smaller boot, I have to point out, most of that space has been lost up here with this angularity. And 99% of the time, all of the load you're going to be putting in is here. Don't forget, the seats fold flat, so if you need that bit of extra room, you can always fit more in. Well, you can have your choice between 3 different petrol engines, or 1 diesel or 1 electric. And what you're looking at here is the second in power of the 2 petrol engines. They stretch from 75 horsepower at the bottom end up to 130 at the top. This is the 100 horsepower mid-engine. It's petrol, and it is a 3-cylinder 1.2 litre. If you want to go with the diesel, you're looking at a 1.5 litre. That is going to produce 100 horsepower, and of course the electric is an entirely different animal. Well, again, this is the Allure line, so if you're not a huge fan of any of the particular styling details, bear in mind that other lines are available, and that does have a fairly significant impact on both the trim level of the seats and just a couple of accent details that maybe aren't your favorite thing in the world. Well, the first thing we need to talk about is these seats. They are very contemporary in look and feel and very modern and stylish. So, does that really add up to a seat that's going to actually be comfortable to use? Well, let's find out. I am 5 feet 10 in height, or 178 centimeters. This seat can go a little lower, so if I put that on its lowest possible setting, you can see that I have more than enough headroom at the top. Now, this car is fitted with a panoramic roof. That's obviously going to cost you a little bit in height, but as you can see, I'm more than comfortable. Well, my goodness, there is absolutely no possibility for you to sit in this car and mistake it for anything else. Peugeot really have gone for it here. And I say all the better for having done it. This is supposed to be a leap into the future of design for them. And it really is something different to look at. Now, I'm actually going to switch the engine on just to make sure the screens don't turn off so we can have a proper look at them. Well, the very first thing to mention is this latest version of the iCockpit from Peugeot. You're not going to be able to see this effectively on camera, so I will do my best to explain it to you. There are, in effect, 2 screens here. So what you have almost appears to be a screen floating in front of another screen, where you can see this 0 at the front, and then above it, the speed restriction sign. There appears to be a visual difference of approximately an inch between the one and the other. This is a 10-inch display. Now, we have here the top infotainment system, and that means we have a 10-inch display here too. Now, unfortunately, all of the test cars that we had available to pick from all came with the top infotainment unit. Why is that unfortunate? Well, I know you guys know that I like buttons and dials, but I have to say, I think this is missing a couple. So if we come slightly further down, you can see what you might recognize from the 508, this piano key style layout in order to select various features. AC off, AC max, you get the general idea. Can you actually get any degree of comfort back here? Well, yes you can. That's the pleasing response. So, first things first, the seats. Well, it's not going to come as a huge shock to you to learn they are not nearly as comfortable as the ones in front, but they are primarily designed for shorter distances and, of course, children. Well, we managed to get our hands on the most powerful of the petrol engines available. So that is still a 3-cylinder engine, 1.2 litres, but 130 horsepower. What does that mean? Well, it means that we can actually get from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour or 62 miles per hour in 8.7 seconds. Around town, well, we know that the car is very polite and well behaved. It ought to be. This is its primary environment that it's happiest in. But what I think we all want to know is what happens to those extra horses once you find a bit of open road. Well, we really wanted to try and find you a spot to show you what the real-world acceleration of this car looks like when you actually want to access it. Now, there are drive modes available here. So the first thing is to make sure that it's in sport mode. And then we just have to wait for a little bit of empty road so we can open it up and show you what it does. And here we go. That's foot flat down on the floor. And that is a 0 to 100 time, hypothetically, of 8.7 seconds. Well, I don't know what your visual experience of that was. It's not quite as satisfying as you would like. This is the most powerful of the engines that are currently available. And because of that, I think you just want a little bit more bite, a little bit more heft. There is unquestionably a turbo lag that's evident pretty much everywhere in the range between you putting your foot down and asking for power and actually receiving it. Now, in order to show you exactly what I mean, I'm going to drop the speed down to 90. Again, I'm in sport mode, so theoretically, this is the best the car has to offer me. And here we go. I'm going to slow it down a little further still. Let's go from 85 and now that's not the least responsive thing you've ever driven, but actually does give you enough in the way of power to be satisfactory. But is it what you want from the performance of the largest engine? That I don't know so much about. You know, this car's a very interesting proposition. In previous years, I would have been delighted with just about everything. It really does well right across the board. Driving position, great. All-around visibility, it's okay, it's not bad. I'm prepared to make that compromise for the really fantastic styling it has. Infotainment system, well, again, is it quite my cup of tea? Possibly not, but you know, it's fresh, it's innovative, it's new, it's stylish, and I'm prepared to make some compromise for that too. Styling, all around fantastic. Handling, steering, not bad. Crisp, taut enough, reasonably weighted, not enough at speed, but pretty good, pretty fun around tighter, more winding roads. Performance, not bad, certainly not best in class, but also certainly not worst. It's not as if the 208 fails to deliver on any individual level. It's just that when you put everything together, the sum of its parts just feels somehow as if it should just be that little bit more. It does feel exciting, fresh, new, dynamic, really everything that I would have wanted to have seen from the evolution of the 208. But it is an evolution, not a revolution. That's been our experience so far, but that's been with the internal combustion engine. I wonder just how much we'll change our minds when we have a chance to find out how well they've delivered the fully electric model. Now it's time for us to put the electric 208 through its paces. So this comes equipped with a 50 kilowatt hour electric battery, and that means, according to the stated data, that you get 340 kilometers or 240 miles of range. Well, of course, those are stated figures, so the keen question is always, how does that relate to real world usage? Well, I'm happy to tell you that even if you're pushing this car quite hard and using a lot of the different electric draining facilities that it has, you should still comfortably be looking at an over 200-mile range. And that's really important. Now, realistically, Peugeot is saying that they don't expect to be selling more than about 10% of total sales volume in electric to start with. But that's only because it takes a paradigm shift in order for people to say, okay, I can live with not worrying about the range and I'm ready to make that change. That aside, for me, this is the full realization of this car. Why? Well, it's the way everything sits together. If you drive the petrol or the diesel, there's something a little bit missing there for me. It's a great experience. It's a really nicely, fully realized car, but all of the components don't quite add up to that little something extra that for me you can have with other platforms. The styling is so modern, it's stylish, it's really nice, the car feels fun and excellent to drive, but something's a little missing. You know what's funny? The minute you start driving the electric one, everything that was missing is instantly there, and it's really nice. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of cars, the extra weight of the electric batteries really has a detrimental effect on the performance and the drive. Bizarrely, for the 208, that extra weight really makes the car feel like it was designed to take it. Suddenly, any notion you had that things were feeling a little bit too light and not quite solid enough absolutely disappear. So, the steering, it's still not quite as responsive as you might like, but that makes more sense with the extra weight. You have a little bit more wiggle room in order to gain the benefit of the driving experience. The whole modern, stylish layout, that just adds up and makes sense when you put it with the electric platform. So, we have just passed through the most horrible roadworks. We're through it now. Look at that. The effortless way in which that power is delivered is just so pleasing. Yeah, it's not going to blow your mind, but for this style and type of car, it's great. Obviously, because it's electric, we really have the benefit of the isolation on the cabin noise, and it's just extremely pleasant to be sitting here. We find ourselves in the available diesel, which is a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder engine. That's going to give you 100 horsepower, took me a while to remember there, and it's going to deliver you a 0 to 62 miles per hour or 100 kilometers per hour speed of 11.4 seconds. It's paired up with a 6-speed manual gearbox, and there is no option available for the automatic with the diesel engine. So, what does all of that add together to make? Let's talk about driving situation first. Really noticeable in this 208 versus the predecessor is that I have a lot more presence on the road. I'm sitting more upright, I'm sitting slightly higher up, and I feel that I'm in a much more dominating position. All-round visibility is not bad. Now, I have to tell you that I get the best out of this car, specifically because I have a long torso but short legs. Therefore, my driving position is very far forwards into the cockpit, and because of that, I can still see quite a lot of information between my headrest and the B-pillar. If, however, I had a slightly different geometry, and a lot of drivers will, you might find that you have a very large black spot in this car, and that is well worth checking out. As far as the mirrors and the glass all around the car, you do notice that those big structural pillars do make quite a lot of difference to the available amount of information that you're able to take in just by a quick sweep of the head. You get used to that quickly enough, but it is worth mentioning just in case you particularly like to have lots of glass. Now, Most important detail of the drive so far is this seat. It is absolutely fantastic. We've now had the opportunity to put a fair few miles down onto this car, and Holger and I both agree that the combination of suspension and the seats makes for an extremely comfortable ride. What's particularly great about these seats is if you throw the car around a little bit to make the most of the dynamic drive, then you'll still be held nice and comfortably while you have all of the protection you need from the rough bits in the road. There's only so much you can do with 11.4 second acceleration, but there really isn't any particularly satisfying point at which to make the best of acceleration in the diesel. I'm going 70, I'm going to drop down to fourth. No, there's no power there. Let's put it in third. This is an overtaking. There's not really anything there either. You can see the point that I'm making. Now, for a lot of people, that's not going to be any form of issue whatsoever. If you do mostly town driving, and that's all you want to do, stop, start, then it's not going to bother you at all. But I would ask you, if you live in a town, you do a lot of town driving, do you really want a manual gearbox? Automatic gearboxes are so good now. The only reason I can think of why I like to have a manual is purely for fun and dynamic driving. Well, you're not really going to be doing a whole lot of that with this diesel engine, so it's not my first pick, but it is solid, it is well built, and it does deliver a driving experience that convinces you that the car is nicely put together. So, if diesel is your thing, don't worry, it's well delivered. It just lacks ever so slightly a bit of dynamism that I would really like to see here. Well, that about wraps it up for the 208 from Peugeot, and my goodness, there's a lot to take in. With prices ranging at the moment anywhere from €15,000 for the base entry-level petrol, all the way up to around about 37,000 for a fully loaded electric, there is a mass of different options that you can pick from. Now, Peugeot, along with all other manufacturers, are currently stating that if you factor in maintenance, cost and fuel, really your choice between different powertrains shouldn't be a significant factor. I'm still not convinced that that's a lot beyond a marketing statement. You can see the worked through numbers, but you need to buy the car, keep the car. There's an awful lot to factor into that decision before you decide what you want. Now, Peugeot have said that initially at least they're expecting somewhere in the region of about 10% of these to sell as electrics. So that's not a massive number, but you get in the look and feel and design and every single aspect and element of this car a real deep sense that electric was the platform that this car was built and designed around. Does that mean that the petrol and the diesel failed to deliver? No, absolutely not. But there are compromises on design that have been made to take that into account. I think all for the good, and I like to look towards the future. So, which one do you go for? That's really the question. Well, that's going to be tailored around your budget. So let's break it down. If you're looking at petrol, I'm going to stick with the 100 horsepower. Why? Well, the 75, unless you're a town driver and you really never pick up any speed much at all and you like it slow and easy, clearly that's the most fuel efficient. It's also going to be the lowest insurance group. It's going to be the cheapest and easier for you. The 130, well, it doesn't deliver the punch that I really want at that weight. So the 100 represents the perfect compromise to me. Gearbox, manual or automatic? I'm automatic all the way on this car. Why? Well, the manual gearbox is fine once you get used to it, but there's a lot too much travel on that gear stick. And although it is going to give you a little bit of enhancement on speed, I'm just not looking for that in this particular car at that particular level. How about the diesel? Well, I guess that's going to come down to personal taste. It's fine. There just isn't a huge amount for me to get excited and really feel that I'm getting an extra benefit from that diesel. But that said, of course, you are going to benefit slightly more from efficiency. So I think that's going to come down to personal taste as to whether you're a diesel person or a petrol person. But if you can justify the money, my hands down pick is going to be the electric platform. Wow is all I can say. Now, before you think, yeah, we've heard it all before, I don't know if you've had the chance to watch our review of the Porsche Taycan. That is where electric can get to. but that's €185,000 at its top level. So this is a slightly different beast. If you go for the top fully loaded version of this car with electric system, you're still looking less than 40. Now that is a lot of money, but there may be government incentives where you live, and don't forget you are buying into the future of a platform here. But forget all of that. It's about driving enjoyment and your experience as a car owner. That just delivers in so many pleasing ways. It's everything that this car can be, and that's why it's my pick. Everything about the way that all of these systems work together is delivered best once you start driving the electric version. Please don't take my word for it. Please take them all out for a test drive and let me know what you think. Now, obviously, it's going to take a long time to convince a lot of person to give up their internal combustion engines, and I'm not expecting that to happen overnight, neither are Peugeot, and that's why you can still find as much refinement and as much enjoyment from the newer models with those engines as you can with the latest electric. So don't let that put you off looking at the full range. Stylistically, what has been achieved with this car is fantastic. I think to get the best out of that, you really do want to go for the GT line. This is okay in the Allure with the color matching bumper and wheel arches, but it doesn't pop in quite the same way. It doesn't say modern and stylish in quite the same way. And I think this is just looking a little bit too much like some other cars in the side, but nothing like the previous 208. I think they've done such a good job with this dramatic styling. If the interior doesn't quite appeal to your taste right off the bat, please spend a bit longer with it. I think you might find that there are some things to love there over time, and everything about the infotainment system that at first really didn't sit quite right with me, I kind of got the point of the more that I drove this car. So there's a lot to discover, a lot to set up the way you like it, and a lot ultimately to like. So, in sum, is this the best car of its type and its class? Well, that depends on the question you're asking. Is this the most sporty dynamic drive that you can have at this price point? No, categorically not. Is this the best value for money you can get? Well, I guess you could argue that, but I would say there are some other cars you should probably look at first. Is this the most modern, forward-thinking car within its class? I would argue yes. And is this the best car at its price point for delivering a fully electric platform? For me, so far, hands down, absolutely. So, whichever engine you're looking at, take this out for a drive, but do yourself a favor. Don't just take it out for a short one. Really give that new technology a chance to settle down and get used to itself. Because you know what? There is an awful lot here to like. And I hope that you'll find that too. If you have any comments or questions, please put them below. Please subscribe, and we hope we'll see you all again soon.